Hi guys, welcome to the stream. Today we're going to do a cool article for you. Okay, we're going to analyze some of the vocabulary and some of the writing style from this article. If you've just joined us, please present yourselves in the live chat. Hello. Happy Saturday, guys. It's the weekend. So nice to see you all again. Today, I'm convinced that you're going to learn some very, very good vocabulary. So, let's get straight into it. All right, let's get straight into the analysis of this article. And what I want to do is sort of go through an excerpt of this article from, I believe it's from 2012, and it's about Italian immigration to Canada, specifically to the province of Quebec and the city of Montreal. All right, so I think it's important to read a lot when you're learning English. Something I think that's overlooked. It's overlooked by many English language learners. So that's what I want to do with you today, sort of some guided reading, okay? And this article is from the Montreal Gazette, so shout out to them. I'll put the link for the article right here in the live chat, so you guys, if you want, you can follow the article also there if it's easier for you. All right, so let's get right into the article. Okay, so with Italian sounding names recently having been featured in newspaper articles describing less than exemplary conduct, I asked an old Italian man if he felt integrated into Quebec society. He answered, "I have my integrity. That should be enough." Though a handful of Quebecers of Italian origin have been publicly implicated in activities outlawed by the established rules, the overwhelming majority are perfectly commendable citizens who work in all sectors of society. Okay, so there are some very good vocabulary words here that we can use, right, in our daily lives, right? So exemplary conduct. Okay, what does that mean, guys? That means conduct, behavior, okay? Very good behavior. Okay, so behavior, sort of, if you'd look up to someone who has exemplary conduct, okay? So it says, with Italian sounding names recently having been featured in newspaper articles, okay, describing less than exemplary conduct, okay, so describing less than exemplary conduct, it's sort of some irony here, right? So it's the complete opposite of exemplary conduct, okay, so it's not good at all, not exemplary, okay. Then we have here the overwhelming majority, right? The overwhelming majority. Okay, the overwhelming majority. That means when something's overwhelming, it's really big, right? Overwhelming. Okay, if something's overwhelming in your life, okay, that means that it's sort of taking over your life, or oh my, it's so overwhelming. It's something you can't even deal with. Okay, something like, for example, school is so overwhelming right now. Okay, that means it's very demanding and it's too much and I can't keep up. Okay, so the overwhelming majority is not just 50%, but like a lot, like 70, 80, 90%, right? The overwhelming majority are perfectly commendable commendable citizens. Okay, commendable citizens. So someone who's commendable, okay, is someone, so a citizen obviously is a person who lives in a city, a province, a country, right? A commendable citizen is someone who you should say, yeah, that's a good citizen. You know, he or she is a good citizen and brings something to the table for society. If you guys have just joined us, please participate in the live chat with me and present yourselves, okay? And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So my grandparents immigrated from Sicily to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So this is sort of something that's near and dear to my heart, all right? So if we look here, okay, we continue. Yet it is not always flattering to be identified as Italian. So flattering, right? It's not always flattering. Okay, something that's flattering, okay, a flattering comment. Hi Elia Sidikova, hello, and hi Rob, Ravita, thank you for joining us again. Thank you so much. So guys, flattering. So yet it is not always flattering to be identified as Italian. What does flattering mean? Elia, Rob, anyone else listening? What does flattering mean in this context? Right? Because first it says, the overwhelming majority are perfectly commendable citizens who work in all sectors of society. Yet, it is not always flattering to be identified as Italian. What do you think flattering means? Let me know in the live chat. In the meantime, we'll move on. So much so that an Italian who has improved his lot, or even worse, managed to become wealthy, especially in the construction business, is often suspected of maintaining ties with the mafia. This sad combination, which has lasted too long, reflects the misunderstandings, conflicts, and inevitable prejudices that have marked the long journey of Italians in Quebec. So, Roberta says in the comments, flattering is a nice thing. Perfect. So flattering is something that's super nice. Compliment, exactly. So usually we say like a flattering compliment. So if it's not always flattering to be identified as an Italian, it means that, like Roberta says, it's not always like a compliment. It's not always seen as a good thing. Okay. So the article goes on to explain, okay, that a lot of people, okay, a lot of Italians who have come to Canada and who have become wealthy, okay, a lot of people look down on them and say they're in the mafia and this and that. So that there's some misunderstandings there. As an Italian Canadian, so Elia says like compliment. Perfect. Very good job, Elia. So as an Italian Canadian, I know that some of these organizations and whatnot, companies did start out not working too legally, but they're probably clean now. But that's for another day. But yeah, so let's move on to the next part of the article. Just wait one sec. So let me fade that in there. Good. So the first Italians arrived in Montreal at the end of the 19th century. There were some 5,000 by 1905, most working in the mines, logging camps, and on the railroad. So Italians had these tough jobs, right, at the beginning of the 20th century. Okay, many were men who had no intention of settling here. So even to this day, my grandparents who are from Italy, they'll tell you, no, we didn't we didn't have any intention of staying here. We thought we'd stay here, make some money, and maybe go back. And that's what I think the overwhelming majority, right? We learned overwhelming majority, the great majority believed or thought at the time, right? That was their plan. So that's pretty interesting. Many were men who had no intention of settling here. They had hoped to go back as soon as they had saved enough money to buy a plot of land or provide their daughters with a dowry. What's a dowry, guys? What's a dowry? Rob, Elia, can you guys tell me what a dowry is in the live chat? We'll move on, but you guys tell me. A good number of them were illiterate. So illiterate means you can't read, you can't write. Okay, so these people, these Italians coming over, they were illiterate. They couldn't read, they couldn't write. All right, so they were working in the mines, on the railroad, difficult jobs. Okay, poorly paid and badly housed, they lived in dangerous, insalubrious conditions. That means unhealthy. Okay, insalubrious means unhealthy conditions and promiscuity, according to the newspapers of the times. Looked down on and without resources, they, including my grandfather, became easy prey for powerful employment agents, a mafia that demanded a tax for, a tax for jobs, and whose role was to deliver docile, cheap labor to employers, a form of near slavery. So Italians were treated almost like slaves when they first came. All right, so they suffered. They suffered a lot when they first came. So in the comments, Rob says the gifts a bride receives for the wedding. It is gift or something like presents. Elia says, Rob, usually from parents. Yeah. So a dowry, right, is when you get married. Okay, and it was like what the bride brought to her husband, the property or the money, right, that the bride's family could bring to the marriage. Okay, that's what a dowry is. All right. So not so common anymore. I don't know if you guys still have that, but yeah, not so common anymore. At least where I live. So yeah. So I noticed a few more viewers have joined. Please, guys, present yourselves in the comments so we can chat some more. We're just going through this article and some very good vocabulary along with it. And he says, "Hi, I'm late." No problem, Annie. No problem at all. So, guys, we were just saying how Italians, when they first came over to Canada, they were treated almost like slaves. And over time, for Italians, there's this misunderstanding that if they became successful, it's because they were a part of the mafia. And this article came out at a time when in 2012, when a lot of the mafia bosses were killed or whatnot. So that's why he released this article from the Montreal Gazette. Yeah. Rob says, "Hi, Annie, my dear classmate." Nice, Rob. Let's move on to the next part of the article. Okay. So Italian immigration practically stopped during the fascist regime. Nevertheless, what does that word mean? It's a good connecting word that we need to know. What does that word mean? Rob, Annie, Elia. What does that word mean? Nevertheless. Let me know in the comments in the live chat. Okay. Nevertheless, Montreal's small Italian community was subjected to its propaganda, even within the churches, and except for a small minority, they adhered to the fascist ideology. Less out of political conviction and more to enjoy the psychological benefits of belonging to a nation whose deuce was adulated not only by the Vatican, but also the heads of foreign governments, including Mackenzie King. All right, so there's a lot here to analyze, right? A lot. Um, so I see something in the comments. So the Italian community, right? This is super interesting. If you go to a church just 10 minutes up the road from where I am right now in Little Italy, in Montreal, okay, there's a church called Madonna della Difesa. And Madonna della Difesa church was an Italian church built by Italian immigrants when they came. And to this day, right now, in the church, there's on the wall in the cupola in the dome thing, you right they have God at the top, right? Then they have like God, they have the Holy Spirit and God the Father. Then they have Jesus, and then they have Mary and the apostles and the saints and all that. Um, yeah, and then below that they have like just regular human citizens and Mussolini. They have a painting. Mussolini is on the wall, right? So you can see how that, and that was in the 1930s. I think that was done. So you can see how that fascist ideology came over even to Italian communities here across the Atlantic. So that's interesting. If you ever come to Montreal, you can see that in Little Italy at Madonna della Difesa Church. So that's pretty interesting. So in the comments, Rob says means however, and he says despite. Okay, so it's not exactly that, right? Any is closer, right? It means like in spite of that. Okay, if that makes sense to you. So in spite of that, right? So like any despite, so despite, right? Despite the Italian immigration stopping, like Annie says, despite the Italian immigration stopping, okay, there was still this propaganda coming over, okay, from Italy, all right? Yeah, so in spite of that, despite, okay? Yeah. So moving on here, so it says whose deuce was adulated not only by the Vatican. So adulated, it's a fancy word to mean like excessively praise. Okay, so give a lot of praise to. Okay, adulated by the Vatican, right, and foreign governments. Okay, so moving on, the party quickly ended when fascist Italy declared war on France. Hundreds of Italians residents of Montreal would be arrested and imprisoned in Petawawa. So the effects of the war affected Italians over here as well, which is super, super interesting. Yeah, super interesting. So let's move on to the next part of this article. Let me just move myself here. 1 second. Let me find. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. So when Italian immigration picked up again after the Second World War, so my grandparents came after the Second World War, 90% of Italians who settled in Quebec between 1947 and 1970 were sponsored by a family member. So how immigration worked was you'd sponsor someone in your family. So my grandfather was sponsored by his uncle. Okay, then so my grandfather came over. Then my grandfather sponsored my grandmother to come over, and then that's how all the family members came, right? That sponsorship still works today in Canadian. It's a bit different how it works now, but it's still in effect in Canada. All right. Monty, you looking is good. Oh, thank you. I got a haircut. I got a haircut, Elia. Thank you. Yeah, I saw my girlfriend yesterday for the first time in a few months. It was also her birthday, as Annie and Rob know. So yeah, it was super nice to see her and see her family. And today, actually, right after this, I'm gonna take her out to the spa. So that's gonna be nice for her because it was her birthday as well. I don't know if I said that, but yeah, it was her birthday yesterday. So yeah, we spent time with the family, but now I'm gonna take her out to the spa and for dinner tonight. Yeah. So moving on here, entire villages emptied out, creating such demographic imbalances and economic difficulties that emigration became a self-generating process. Sponsorship explains why nearly a third of all Quebecers of Italian background come from Molise. Isn't that crazy? So a third of the Italians here in Quebec. Okay, a third of the Italians here in Quebec come from Molise, from one place, right? My grandparents are Sicilian, so not from Molise. But for example, my girlfriend's grandmother is from Molise. So it's crazy because entire towns emptied out, villages emptied out. So still today, my grandparents hang out with people from their village, from their teeny tiny village, Santa Lucia del Mela, in a mountain, on a mountain in Italy. Now that village is almost empty. Okay, because these people just left and left. And the funny part is, ironically, now Italy, and there are programs there where they're trying to put new refugees and immigrants that come to Italy in these abandoned, okay, in these abandoned villages, okay, in Italy. So it's sort of like a full circle sort of thing, which is kind of cool. And actually, they've been calling a lot of Italian immigrants, whether it be in Canada, Argentina, the States, whatever, and saying, listen, can we use your house for these programs for the new refugees coming in? Because they still technically own the houses. Like my nonno has a house. Yeah. So Rob says, now I understand why people left after World War II. Yeah, so many people left after World War II. They kept on sponsoring and sponsoring and sponsoring and sponsoring. Yeah, pretty cool. So what guys, when we say we're sponsored, sorry, we're sponsored by, did that go through? Yeah, okay, sorry. We're sponsored by. What are we using there? Is that active voice or passive voice? Let me know in the live chat. Okay, so sponsorship explains why nearly a third of all Quebecers of Italian background come from Molise. Others came from various regions, but many were from Calabria and Sicily, where my grandparents are from, where the Ndrangheta and the Mafia flourished and spread from there across the world. Most of them chose to settle in Montreal alongside tens of thousands of rural Quebecers. So rural means in the farmland, right, in the country. This was a time of intense urbanization and a building boom, right, like increase, boom, boom, boom. The Metropolitan Expressway, the metro system, new suburbs, schools, roads, etc., whose apotheosis would come with Expo 67. Okay, so Rob says in the live chat, passive, right? So they were sponsored by someone. So that's passive voice. Okay, that's not active voice. So active voice is family members sponsored right? Other family members. Okay, but we use passive here because we want to emphasize who they were sponsored by. So the passive voice in this case is used for emphasis, right? So they were sponsored by a family member. That's stronger to emphasize who they were sponsored by. Okay? Usually we use the active voice, but there are some cases where we want to emphasize the person, right? Like sponsored by a family member, so we use the passive voice. Yeah. So coming back here, does anyone know what apotheosis means? That's a nice word to know. Right at the end of the paragraph there, this was a time of intense urbanization, right? So a lot going to cities and a building boom, right? Buildings going up. Whose apotheosis would come with Expo 67. Does anyone know what Expo 67 is and what the word apotheosis means? Let me know in the live chat. And guys, please give a like to the video and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. So, apotheosis, right? So they talk about all these things, the Metropolitan Expressway, the metro system, new suburbs, schools. So all this development, okay, all this development at one time, right? And a lot of Italians contributed to this development in Canada and in Montreal specifically. Yeah, which is super cool. So apotheosis means the highest point, the highest, right, the climax. So, so all this boom was going on, boom, 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 and the highest point of that was Expo 67. The apotheosis, the highest point was Expo 67. Rob says, I know the meaning of apotheosis. The word is similar in Italian, but I don't know how to explain. So yeah, the highest rank. Yeah. Annie says the highest point of development. Yeah, perfect, Annie. Very, very good job. Okay. So would come with Expo 67. Expo, right, the World Exposition, right? And I think they had it in Milan a couple years ago, where all the countries would meet and show off new developments and stuff like that. And the expo, right, the word expo actually originated in Expo 67, 1967 in Montreal. So yeah, that's pretty cool to know. And my girlfriend's very proud of that Expo 67, and she did a whole project on it. And yeah, it's a pretty cool point of history to study. Rob says Expo should be a big event. In 2015 was in Milan. Exactly. So I just said that, Rob. Perfect. Yeah. So Expo, the word Expo actually comes from Montreal, the Expo 67, which is pretty cool. And then after Montreal actually got its own baseball team, okay, in the MLB, the professional league that plays in the States and stuff, and they were called the Montreal Expos. That's pretty interesting, eh? But the team had to fold, but they may be coming back next year actually, which is interesting. But yeah, that's a side thing. Let's move on to the next page here. Okay, this page is very interesting. So I am part of the immigration wave, right? The immigration wave, so all of them coming, of the 1950s. Okay, a wave is like a wave in an ocean, like, okay, a wave in an ocean, okay? When fathers immigrated before the rest of the family. Arriving with children would have been too costly for the host society. So my grandparents came around 1960, so by that time it was a bit different already. So my grandfather, he came with his father, but my grandfather was already older. He was in his 20s, so he wasn't a kid. but he also had younger siblings who were young, so they also came, so they came together. But my nonna, my grandmother, came a year after, okay, to get married here. Yeah, and she came a year after. She came by herself. She was a teenager, and she came on a boat, okay, on a ship. No one came by plane back then. They came on a boat. She came by herself, okay, as a teenager, which is crazy. Yeah, she was super sad to leave her family, and she didn't have anyone here. All she had was her fiance at the time here. She didn't have her family, which is was a super courageous thing for her to do. So arriving with children would have been too costly for the host society. So would have been too costly. Which tense is that, guys? Would have been too costly. Which tense are we using there? Let me know in the live chat. Okay? Will we ever know what the immigration of men and women ready to work with various skills and professions brought and is still bringing to the Quebec economy? Our parents believed they were emigrating for a better life. So that's what the belief was of immigrants, right? They were emigrating for a better life. For most of them, it only proved to be a different one. Poverty gave way to the illusion of abundance, with each settling for his meager payday. That's a good word to know. So what does meager mean? Meager payday. Let me know in, excuse me, oh my gosh. Let me know in the live chat, okay? Gotta get your smoothie in the morning. So, as he waited to be avenged by his children. In my case, I was happy in the place where I was born. So this is the author talking, the writer, okay? And the promise of some better, other place seemed to be one lie among many. And I wasn't mistaken. After having been rejected by a French school, so this is very, very, very interesting. After having been rejected by a French school, the same one my two sons would attend 30 years later, I was called a wop. Okay, a wop was a derogatory term for Italians. Okay, oh, you're a wop. Okay, so just to say you're an Italian, but it wasn't a nice term. Okay, some people say the origin of wop comes from like wop in Italian, like I think it's a GUAP something. Or some people say WOP without official papers. So they didn't have their papers. They didn't have their documents. They weren't legal, but they were. Okay. I was called a WOP on a regular basis. On a regular basis means all the time, right? In the bus that took me to the ghetto school in an Italian neighborhood. Let me move myself here just so I can, an Italian neighborhood. So, looking at the live chat, meager is think, I think like a low salary in this case. Yeah, so a meager, okay, a meager payday, okay, so a payday is when you get paid. Meager means not much quality or quantity. So in this case, not much quantity or quality. It wasn't a quality payday either. So lacking in quantity or quality, that's what meager means. Okay, good job, Roberta. Okay, so if we continue on here, that insult planted an anger in me that flares anew every time. So that flares anew, that's like reignited. Okay, flare is like the fire, that's reignited anew, again and again anew. Every time I'm told I'm not a francophone because French is not my mother tongue. Recognition, because the Italians, right, they would speak to their children in Italian, right? So technically their mother tongue is Italian. Recognition is long overdue that many of us immigrants did not wait for the coming of Bill 101 to learn French. So this is where you need to know some Canadian history, some Quebec history as well. So when the Italians came over, the French Canadians here in Quebec, they didn't want them. Okay, they didn't want them. But Montreal has always had like a very international scene. Okay, so Montreal is like 50% English, 50% French. Okay, if you go out in the suburbs, in the rural areas of Quebec, it's almost 100% French. Okay, but in Montreal, it's 50% English, 50% French. So the Italians, the French didn't want them. The French school boards didn't want them. They said, no, get out, get out, get out. They didn't want them. So the Italians were like completely offended, right? And they originally the Italians thought, okay, French is more similar to Italian. Let's learn French. But the French just pushed the Italians away and away and away. So the majority of Italians went to English school, like my mother. Okay, they went to English school. That's why the majority of Italians now are Anglophones here in Quebec, in Montreal. So the French didn't want them. There were actually signs. My girlfriend always talks about this, and it said like, "On loue pas aux Italiens." We don't rent out our apartments to Italians, ni aux chiens. So nor to dogs. So like comparing Italians to dogs in a sense, which is crazy. Hi, Raj Kumar. Nice to see you in the live chat. So guys, Bill 101 is extremely important here. Okay, so Bill 101, this is actually because of Italians. Very interesting, Roberta. Okay, there was so much Italian immigration. Okay, and especially in a place called Saint Leonard here in Montreal. So much Italian immigration that all these Italians were going to English schools, and then eventually, okay, the French got scared and they said, oh my gosh, the English are going to take over here in Quebec. So they put in a rule. Bill 101 states that any new immigrants that come to Canada, any new immigrants that come to Quebec have to go to French school. So if your children you immigrated to Quebec, your children would have to go to French school. Yeah. Even though they hated them at first. So it's super, super complicated, and it's a complicated history. So yeah, Rob, good job. Meager, yeah, low salary. They weren't paid very well. Okay. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next one. That last sentence isn't that important. Okay. Here we go. Okay. I think that's the last thing I wanted to show you in this article. Yeah, so basically, guys, Italian immigration is a super complex thing here in Montreal. Okay, super, super, super complex. Okay, and my grandparents are a part of that, and I'm proud to be Italian Canadian. But there are certain connotations that go with it. Yeah, but this is where I get a bit upset, and Roberta, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But a lot of Italians, okay, they don't know the reality of Italians living abroad. Okay, as in, for example, I don't remember his name right now, but the guy representing Italy, what's his name? In the G7, okay, in the G7, I remember he was in Canada here, And Trudeau, our prime minister, said, yeah, there are a lot of Italians here and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, but they're just fourth generation Italians. That's not true. A lot of our Italians are still alive. My grandparents are still alive. Their kids are still alive. So it's not fourth generation like a lot of Italians think. I don't know why there's that mentality, but yeah, that's something that annoys me. Do you guys have any questions about the vocabulary used in this article or about the article in general? Let me know in the live chat. What we'll do now is we can do a little exercise, okay? Before we go. Okay, we can do an exercise before we go. Let me just pull it up here. Okay. So this is from, let me post it in the live chat, okay? Okay. So this is an oh, that's not gonna work. 1 second. Oh my gosh, it's long. Sorry. 1 second, guys. Okay. Let's just get rid of that. Okay. So let me post it in the live chat. So here's the exercise. We're gonna do a little vocabulary exercise here. Okay. So here's your word box. Okay, so let's look at this first one together. So the red double-decker bus. So this doesn't have to do with the article. This is just some vocabulary for you. So the red double-decker bus inched its way through the of traffic in Aldgate. So look at the word bank there in the live chat and try to fill in these sentences with the correct vocabulary. If you haven't already, please give the video a like. And don't forget, guys, to subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. I want to be able to make more live streams for you guys. All right. So what do you think the answer to the first question is there, right? Based on the word bank that I gave you. Yeah, based on the word bank that I gave you. What do you think? What do you think the answer is? Okay. It's either snarl, reluctant, rid, crowded, or run. Okay. Which word do you think fits into the red double-decker bus? So Annie says reluctant, crowded. For number one, the red double-decker bus. I don't think so, Annie. Not the reluctant red double-decker bus. I don't think so. Any other guesses, guys? Any other guesses? What do you think? What do you guys think? Let me make myself a bit bigger for you guys so you can see. Okay. There we go. Sorry, here I am. So Rob says crowded and rid. So Rob is correct for the first one. So the crowded red double-decker bus. Okay, so crowded means crowded means there's a lot of people. Okay, a lot of people. All right, crowded. Inched its way. So inch by inch by inch. Okay. Inched its way through the snarl of traffic. Okay, through the snarl of traffic in Aldgate. Okay, what about the next one? It was almost as if it was to get of the overload of noise. This is an excerpt from one of my favorite books called To Sir with Love, okay, about a teacher in England, okay, a black teacher, an African-American teacher, okay, in England, who has to deal with racism all the time, which is super sad. But yeah, so what's the answer to the next one? So the crowded red double-decker bus inched its way, so inch by inch, slowly, right through the snarl of traffic. Okay, so the snarl, so the snarl is sort of like that sort of sound there, right? Just the sound of traffic. Okay, yeah, right. The snarl and slowly moving. Okay. Anyone for the next one? For the next one? Do you guys know? So snarl, Rob's asking, what does snarl mean? So snarl is when, okay, something's like knotted. Okay, something's knotted, right? Or intertangled. So like the cars are intertangled, okay? Snarled, okay? That's what the snarl of traffic, okay? Snarl can also mean like the dog snarled at him. So like the dog growled like, "Urgh." That's like a snarl, okay? But snarl can also mean like something is okay, something is tangled. Okay, so it's more complicated and it's intertangled. Okay, that's what snarl is. Okay, I'm sorry, my girlfriend's just texting me here. Okay, so Rob says for the next one, it was almost as if it was reluctant to get rid of the overload of noisy, earthy charwoman it had collected on its run through the city. Perfect. Okay, so it was almost as if it was reluctant to get rid of. So to get rid of is like to eliminate, right? To get rid of, okay, it can mean eliminate or just dispose of, okay? That's what to get rid of, right? In this case, to drop off, but we're using sort of allegoric language because it's a novel, right? On its run through the city. So a bus's run through the city is its ride through the city. Okay, very good job, Rob. Okay, so it was when something's reluctant, it means that it hesitates to do something. Okay, it's reluctant. All right, guys, I'm sorry. I think that's all the time we have for today. Do you have any quick questions? Our next live stream is going to be on December 23rd. Okay. I believe, let me check the time. I think it's December 23rd. What time did I put? December 23rd. What time did I put? At 9 a.m. Okay. Just in case you guys want to get in some more English practice before Christmas. Okay. So yeah, good job, Raj Kumar. Free from, get rid of. Okay. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Roberta, for showing up. I hope you enjoyed the Italian immigration stuff, all of you, and it was super interesting to do with you. Give me some suggestions, guys, whether it be on Facebook, YouTube, what content you want for videos, what content you want for live streams. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Rob says no questions. For today, everything clear. See you next time. Bye, Roberta. Thanks so much. So Alex says, would have been too costly is present perfect. No. It's conditional past. Okay, would have been too costly. Would plus have plus past participle. In this case, the past participle of to be is been. Okay, so would have been. Okay, would plus have plus past participle. Okay, that's conditional past. All right, guys, thank you so much. I will see you in the next one. God bless you.